we good to go? I think I have 9 o'clock. Good morning, Great Hearts, Arizona. My name is Eric Twist, the president, and I've got here my good friend and colleague, Jake Taney. Jake is the vice president of curriculum for Great Hearts America. And today we wanted to spend some time really focused on one thing in particular, which is our Google Classroom environment, and really what the next few weeks are going to look like as we transition from the sort of packets that we're printing out, that you were printing out on the web-based portion of our what we're calling Remote Learning 1.0, and moving into 2.0, again, which is the Google Classroom environment. And so we've got Jake here to sort of walk us through where do we start in getting ready for this this time of remote learning, and where are we headed, especially this week and in the weeks subsequent. But before we get into that, I just want to share, I guess, what we're calling is a few headlines here. You should know that personal belonging pickup is happening this Wednesday and Thursday. Be looking for an email from your academy for instructions. If you haven't already received an email from your academy, please do reach out to them. But this Wednesday and Thursday, sort of depending on the school, you'll be able to get your books and belongings and anything that was left in cubbies or lockers across our academies. There will be another survey going out in my Wednesday blast. So every Wednesday I'm sending to the whole network some updates. Not all of it's new information. The newest information is usually always from your headmaster. But in that Wednesday blast will be the survey, just like the one that we sent last week. And we really hope that you'll take that survey, especially this week as we've rolled into the Google Classroom environment. We want to be able to catch any kind of early issues so that we can triage those, and so your feedback's going to be really important. I also want to note that on our webpage there is a dedicated, I guess, COVID page. I guess that's what it is, a COVID page. Our coronavirus page that has up-to-date information, has a ton of frequently asked questions on there. So probably before you go anywhere else, you might want to go and check out the FAQs on the coronavirus page. Just to make sure that you've been able to identify the questions that you have and see if we already have the answers. Today we want you to know that we want to take a lot of Q&A. The way that Q&A will work is if you just type it through Facebook Live. If you type it online, Shannon here, who you don't see on camera, but Shannon will pick those up. She'll put them on the board for us, and we'll be able to take those questions really as we go throughout our time together. And so, Jake, Vice President of Curriculum, you've been very busy lately, you and your fine colleague, Geraldine Olson. The two of you together with, I know, a large team of people. The headmasters have been involved. Teachers, of course, have been extremely busy. But you have, in short order, I would say, taken Great Hearts from something that is fully and fundamentally brick and mortar offering and digitized it. That certainly comes with a lot of variables and a lot of hiccups and a lot of questions, obviously, about how do we take this rich curriculum, this experience that we have in our classrooms, and make it available at home during the quarantine. And so, if you could you just walk us through kind of where we started in starting to get those packets uploaded, and then why the transition to Google Classroom, what it's going to look like, and sort of the major highlights that you think our moms and dads would like to know about. So
yeah, thanks. So it's very good to be with people today. I understand lots of people are online. It was 80 before we even started, and that number is climbing. It's really good to be here with families. I appreciate the question, Eric. I would first and foremost just start off with a expression of gratitude. I have had the great pleasure of watching the best of people come out in the last several weeks. Our teachers are, I am convinced, the hardest working teachers in the country right now.
Amen.
The quality of work that they put together is astounding, and they are under the direction of their headmasters, who I really think are the hardest working group of school leaders.
Yeah.
So my gratitude goes out first and foremost to teachers and headmasters, but also to the support staff at the building, the support staff and the teams that are working so hard at the lead office. And then more importantly than all of this, just gratitude to the families, to you as parents. We know that we're in extraordinary circumstances right now, and we really appreciate both your grace and your patience as we do what you said, Eric, right, which is try to take this very rich classical liberal arts curriculum and figure out a way to deliver it in a new set of givens, in a set of givens that's not a building and kids sitting in a classroom for a certain amount of time. And I'm really proud. I'm really proud of the work that's been done. We have tried very, very hard, and I think have been very successful in keeping content as king, in making sure that we are continuing to deliver high-quality content to students. And that, to some degree, explains why I think we have a 1.0 and a 2.0. There's a Latin phrase, festina lente, which means to make haste slowly. And I heard you say, Eric, at the beginning that it feels like we've been running a mile a minute, and yet at the same time, I think that we intentionally did not go as fast as we could have in making a jump to something like Google Classroom. We wanted to make sure that we had just a little bit of time to roll out a technology solution like that, and not to have that get in the way of high quality content. And that's why the first version of this really was about trying to keep high quality content in a relatively, as much as we can, low tech solution in delivering these packets. We had the great pleasure of collecting virtually every packet that was put out there and looking at the quality of work that's there. And I know it's a new environment for parents, a new environment for all of you families. And we, again, appreciate that grace and that patience. But we've also heard feedback from lots of you on just the really rich activities that are there in those packets that went home for the first week or two. We always knew that we would transition to something like Google Classroom, and I would say really for three main reasons, just from the get-go, right? A more streamlined way of delivering those activities, and a way for students to turn them back in.
Right.
We wanted to make sure that was as easy as possible for parents, but then also a mechanism for teachers to give that feedback.
Can you talk a little bit really quickly just about why turning work in is so important, especially for us?
Right. So for us, it certainly is never about busy work. But it's also not just about students doing work. It is about that interaction with teachers. So even in that first iteration, we wanted to make sure that eventually we got a solution that would allow parents to get that work back to teachers so that teachers can give that feedback. And we'll talk a little bit later about the video support. I know there's lots of questions coming in about teachers doing videos and providing some instruction there.
So talk about how that grading will work, though. Can you just jump there since we're on the topic?
Yeah, so the grading obviously has to take a little bit different form than it would in a classroom because there's not the constant interactions, that real important live feedback that comes through Socratic inquiry. But by and large, our teachers are very good at what they do, and they know how to provide feedback, written feedback on the students' work. And so that feedback will come through Google Classroom, feedback on the work that the students submit, and teachers are already thinking about the kinds of things that are collected and the kinds of feedback that will help students evaluate the quality of their work, but also be able to improve. But I would imagine that a lot of parents' questions are not simply about feedback, but also about grading, and we're working through that, and likely going to come out with more details this week on how that will work.
You mean fourth quarter and semester?
I mean about fourth quarter and semester grades, right? And we've had a lot of really smart people gathered around that conversation. I can tell you that our primary lens, that everybody that's been involved with a conversation about grading, the primary lens is making sure that no student is harmed by these extraordinary circumstances that we have, that we're in right now.
Jake, I want you to go back into just talking about the platform itself, of the Google Classroom platform. Before we do that, there is a question from Kristen about too much printing. Can we pick up packets at school? Will you talk about what we're doing to make sure that parents can continue to pick up packets?
So I get that. I have 3 kids that are in a Great Heart School right now, and we also have the packets, and so we're struggling with a tiny little printer that we have at home as well. So what we're doing is 2 things. So one, really trying to encourage teachers, well actually 3 things. Encourage teachers to separate off the resources from the actual, say worksheets or things that need to be written on, so that we don't have to print the whole thing. Google Classroom will help with that because we don't have to post a giant PDF that has everything. We can separate those things off into a single assignment. So that's one.
How much printing, just on that, how much printing should a parent be doing now that we've moved into Google Classroom?
Yeah, great question. So the second thing we're doing is encouraging teachers to try to limit the amount of things that actually do need to be printed. Certainly, I would think we would try to get down on average to 1 page per class per day, but I think that there are classes that will need less than that. But I think the question specifically was about picking up packets, and there always is that ability, right? There always is the ability to pick up a printed packet. For a variety of reasons, we feel that we have a moral obligation to continue to provide that service. And so if you contact your school, they can give you the details on how to continue doing that.
Great. So let's go back to Google Classroom. Why did we pick Google Classroom? And can you really touch on two major points? Just about the usability, so some high points there, and then about security. Can you discuss that?
And actually, Eric, you hit the two main lenses that we look through when evaluating platforms. Again, that Latin phrase, to make hay slowly. We had to pick a platform pretty quickly, but we really tried to spend a couple weeks just dialing back and not jumping in right away so that we could evaluate multiple platforms. And what it came down to is exactly those categories you've mentioned. Security, first and foremost, but then also usability. We wanted something that was not complicated for families. We wanted something that we could roll out with relative ease and that families could get used to with relative ease. On that note, we still beg parents' patience and grace, as we've said. It is a new platform, and so it will take a little bit of a learning curve. Again, my 3 students over the weekend were able to log in without Dad's direction and to be able to take scans using the phone of their work and upload those to Google Classroom. And there was a little bit of a learning curve, but they also were able to do it in a relatively short amount of time.
I know that one thing that our executive director of lower schools, Leanne Fawcett, mentioned to me, and I know it should have been communicated to parents, at least will be this week, is that especially for the archways, the content load is going to be a little lighter this week, just to give time to deal with some of these learning curve issues. Like any new system, it takes a little bit of time to get used to it, and once you do, you know, it feels very natural. But we expect that this week there will be a few kinks, and there will be things you're getting used to, and you get the hang of it, and it'll feel much better going into the second week.
Yeah, and thanks for that comment. I think that's right. I would really just encourage all students today to just focus on getting into the system, and they should see when you get there just a singular assignment, which is to upload the work from the past week or two. And I would really just kind of focus on that. You will have work today. There will be new assignments to work on this week. But if you can just take a little bit of time today and dedicate that time to making sure you can get into the system. We know, as of very early this morning, upwards of 75% of our students have now logged into Google. So they seem to have no trouble getting in. Maybe a few questions here and there. By way of supports in terms of getting in, I would encourage students to make sure you're going to that resource page, greatheartsamerica.org/AZ resources. On there, my colleague Geraldine Olson has developed a Google Classroom family walkthrough that I think is so good, Google will probably at some point want to buy this from us. It's a really great resource on how to log in, how to scan your assignments, how to upload those assignments. But also in that introductory letter that you got that had your login information, there is a help desk there. If you have trouble logging in, please make sure to reference that letter and go to that help desk. We have people monitoring that all day today and really throughout the week to make sure that we can get people in. So like I said, 75% of people are in. Other 25% make that a top priority today. Get the students in, figure out how to get last week's work scanned and uploaded. And I'd say that's pretty good work for today, and then you can start looking at the work for the rest of the week.
So let's go back to security. Is it safe?
Yeah, it's...
There have been a lot of concerns. I mean, I wouldn't say a lot of concerns, but we've had a few parents reach out and just want to make sure that their personal identity is kept safe in using these platforms. Can you talk a little bit about what Great Hearts have been doing, both, I guess, both on the Google Classroom side and on the Zoom side,
Yeah.
and maybe actually even address the Zoom bombing that people are worried about.
Yeah, so I'm glad to hear you bring it up, both in terms of Google and Zoom. Most of the questions we're getting are about Zoom. I'll address Google a little bit here. Again, security was something we looked through when we evaluated platforms, and also the security lens was something we looked through when setting up the platform. This is why we set up students' accounts for them. It's why the parent has the ability to change, not the ability, they actually need to change that password immediately upon logging in, to make sure that the Google platform itself is safe from any hacking or any other threat that might be out there. The real questions, though, I think are about Zoom. So first of all, both Zoom and Google Classroom, we have ensured that both as platforms and in the way that we're implementing them are FERPA and COPA compliant. Both of those are laws surrounding student privacy of information, FERPA being the older ones, sort of general student privacy issues, COPA being the laws that surround privacy issues online with regards to education. With Zoom, there's a lot of stuff in the news right now, and it certainly is true that there have been some violations of security with Zoom. So first of all, Zoom has done wonders in making their platform more secure, even just this weekend. We've seen them make some changes to that. And that's really important, and I think actually justifies our make case slowly approach. We didn't jump into this right away. But even before Zoom made those changes, there are things that the school can and ours will do to make the platforms perfectly secure. So first of all, we're going to have no recordings of Zoom sessions. That's really important, right? We know that some of our students have signed media releases, some of our families have not. Just to simplify this whole thing, we just said, look, no Zoom recordings are going to be done. The teachers are the ones that control the audio and video. One of the most important things we put in place is to insist that our teachers use that waiting room functionality so that no one can just randomly join a Zoom chat. That's really important. That's what we've seen actually from all the Zoom bombing, is that as people publicize their Zoom link, or in some cases people guessed at the Zoom link, they were able to join because they didn't implement the waiting room functionality. That's really important for us. But also in terms of student security, we disabled the chat function. Students are not transferring files. All of our students, I'm sure, are good and moral and make great choices, but we're going to help them make those moral choices by not giving them access to private chat functions, not giving them the ability to transfer files, and all that. So I think, and I think we've taken we've taken the steps necessary to make sure that Zoom is safe for us. But in the end, if a parent still strenuously objects to this, all of the Zoom activities are going to be optional. We think they're great activities. We really want to encourage families to join them, particularly as we think about humane letters seminars, maybe some private tutoring sessions between the teacher and the students. We think they're very, very good educational activities and really encourage them to. But the parents have that ability to make that choice.
I think this is an important point to make, Jake, and there have been some questions that we've seen up here on the board from Shannon from our families. But parents should start to see both full class sessions, video sessions. We're using Swivel. We don't have to go into that too much. I saw a lesson even yesterday for my 5th grader math through Swivel. But students will have recorded video lessons of new content that will be given to them. We are making available tutoring sessions between students and teachers that can happen both via conference or telephone, by the way. Very important for our humane letters students. We will be having full humane letters Socratic seminars happening through Zoom, is my understanding. And if you can't or don't want to connect through Zoom, you can connect through a phone. So there's that functionality there, those options. What else should our parents expect to see in terms of creating these connections? I know they're not the real connections we would have in the classroom, but that's one of the things that we're really trying to do during this time is to let people see one another and to let those rich experiences through the Socratic method happen in the only way that they can, which is really through live discussion.
Yeah, that's right.
So talk about what we're doing there and at what levels.
Yeah, so internally, so we've talked today about 1.0 being the packets and 2.0 being Google Classroom. Internally, we've always thought of this as sort of as a 1.5. The 1.5 is just launching Google, and so just as a fair warning to parents, you'll get into Google, and the first thing you're going to see is still turn in last week's packet, right? And here's some assignments for this week. But fear not, because once we get that platform up and running and all the kids are in it and they're used to it, that's exactly when you're going to see some of these video solutions start rolling out. And I would say that there are really two equally important reasons for that. One is that our teachers are teachers. And they don't just want to be content creators and deliverers. They want to interact with the students. They want to be able to deliver instruction. That human connection is something that the Great Hearts prizes, right? It's why we haven't been very high-tech prior to the extraordinary circumstances we're in. But now that we're in them, it really is the best way to allow a teacher to be a teacher. And that can happen both through a recorded lecture, through Swivel, right? As a side note on security issues, we chose Swivel over YouTube for precisely security issues.
Exactly, yeah.
But then, so through recorded video, but also through those Zooms, right? We've already heard from a couple preliminary video solutions that we rolled out just to make sure things were working and secure. We've heard great feedback from our families. We heard stories of little third graders just being absolutely delighted to be able to see their teacher, and those are not even interactive ones, right? Just to be able to hear that message. I know I was on a town hall meeting with Headmaster Washburn just for parents and families. It seemed like the parents were just so delighted to be able to interact with that headmaster. And so I would say, both for the ability to have a teacher be a teacher and to deliver instruction, but also for that human connection, or at least as close as we can approximate that in these times. It's really important for us. So parents will see more of that as the week goes on. We just need to get them in the system, to get them to turn in assignments, and then they're going to see all of that start to roll out as we make our way through the rest of the year.
I just want to emphasize a point that you made, and I think this is, we're both parents, have kids at Veritas, and between us, eight kids at Veritas.
That's right, yeah.
And more to come. But I think this point you made about our teachers, I think, is really important. We do have the very best teachers in Arizona. That was proven before this unprecedented event. It's been emphasized.
And they're aching.
They are so aching to get in front of their kids and to give their kids what they desperately need. And I think that's one of the important points to make, is that our teachers are absolutely committed to making sure that our kids don't go backwards during this time.
That's right.
And I don't think that's true everywhere.
Right.
We want to show up for school in August, back together, happy to be back together in the same room. Knock on fake wood. This probably isn't real wood, but anyway, we'll knock on it. With kids that have not fallen behind in the fourth quarter, and that really is so much of the motivation right now behind the work that's going on, and the hours and hours of work that our teachers are putting in to take something that wasn't digitized, to digitize it and to make it available, and the hours that they will spend recording videos and then making themselves available for tutoring, live tutoring sessions, either via video conference or the phone, and of course the live Zoom sessions that they're going to do. All of this is with a mind to making sure that our kids continue to learn in the fourth quarter and are set up for success as they go into the next school year, as they matriculate. I think that's really important. The Great Hearts is fundamentally committed to serving. That's what we do. We serve our families. We're here to make sure that they have the absolute best education in the country. And we'll do that even in these, sort of crazy circumstances. So I think a lot of kudos to our teachers for all that they're doing. And I know, again, Jake said, and it's absolutely true, they are hungry to spend more time with your kids, and we are doing everything that we can to make that as available as possible through all the different channels that we can. Let's take a little pause here. We've got a bunch of questions that have been put up on the board.
Sure.
Is there one that you see that you want to take?
So let's address a pair of questions here, which is, can students work ahead and can we turn work in late? So in terms of turning work in late, look, I mean, with the instructions we've given to the schools and given to the teachers, just again, as we ask you for grace and patience, we're also telling our staff to have some grace and patience with work coming in. They know that there's a learning curve to turning this stuff in. They know that there's a learning curve to trying to be able to work in this new environment. And so yes, there's going to be a lot of grace and patience with getting student work in. Can you work ahead? Well, there are certainly things that students can work ahead on just by the nature of it. If you're in a humane letters class, a lit comp class, or have some reading at the Archway level, there's nothing to stop a student from reading ahead. You can access assignments as they're posted, and that as they're posted, then you can turn them in. Right. So there's no way, for example, to get next week's assignment until they're posted. Right. But that's a lot like how it works in a regular classroom.
Yeah. So how about this question, I don't want to do Google. What are my options?
Yeah, so this is why we had a consent form. I think people who got the login information noticed right away. It didn't have the link to Google Classroom right away. It directed you to a consent form. And again, I know Eric feels this way. I feel this way. We greatly respect the parents' ability to make certain decisions for their children. Right. As a parent, I want that ability to make those decisions. We think that Google is a streamlined way to deliver content, to collect content, and to get feedback. But in the event that a parent really does not want to do it, this is why we maintain the ability for a parent to pick up a packet and to do that work, as they've done for the last week or two, to get that packet from their school. And I would just call the school for that and make sure that they know, just so that we can plan to know how many to print.
I see some questions here just about the amount of content that's being expected. I think we're maybe not in the best position to answer this question, but maybe from a high point you can answer. And then, of course, I think on a lot of these, I just want to encourage our parents to always reach out to their academy leadership and to speak about what's happening on the ground. But will you talk a little bit about the level of content and the expectations that, from a standardized standpoint, that the network is sort of communicating out to its teachers?
Yeah, I really appreciate that. You know, we gave very early instruction to our headmasters, to our staff, to really think hard about two things. One, the ability for a student to do the work largely in this new environment, right? So even as we add video support, which has more instruction, again, our teachers are hungry to instruct, but it still won't be the same as a live instruction in a classroom. So we're really working with our teachers to make sure that they're giving students the work that can be done by those students in this new environment. And that's both in terms of the types of tasks, but also in terms of the amount of time. You know, quite frankly, we saw at least one a charter operator, a national operator early on, that communicated something like 6 or 7 hours of expected work. And you know, to be fair, they were thinking, you know, a student spends that amount of time in the classroom. Right. We gave that advice early on that that's just not reasonable. Yeah. That as we get to the prep level, we're looking really about 3 to 4 hours. As you work your way down into the Archway, it should be significantly less than that. So we're really not trying to stack their day full of this kind of, you know, semi-independent learning. Again, even with the video solutions, it's still a different environment, and we want to make sure that students can be successful. So I would say, if for the parents, I think there is some feedback from certain classes. Maybe there was too much work. I would just offer some very respectful feedback to the buildings on that. I think they're hungry to learn. We're all learning about what are the types of tasks that are appropriate to this new environment. What are the lengths of tasks? You know, what is the parents' expectations? You know, again, the types of, I think it was another question that was up here.
Yeah.
The types of tasks that we're trying to get into the students' hands are things that can be done in this new environment. We do not expect parents to have to be the instructors full day with their kids. We know many of you are home, but a lot of you have full-time jobs still, right? You don't have the ability to sit down with students for 2-3 hours a day. And so that is not the expectation. You know, again, some grace and patience. I think that the young ones are going to need a little bit of help logging into the system, getting their work done and completed. That certainly is the case, but what we're trying to reduce that as much as possible.
Do you have any advice, especially for kinder, first, and second grade students? I mean, I know, you know, we've got a few of those in our homes, and I think that's where the heaviest lift can end up being, and especially when you think about some of the idiosyncratic pedagogies that we employ. You know, you think about the way that you teach Spalding, or the way that you teach Singapore math. Any words of wisdom or advice for our Archway families out there that are dealing with that, especially with the primary grade kids?
Yeah. So the advice is, you know, first and foremost, there will be more support for that kind of thing coming out as we roll out Google Classroom and more video starts to come out. But my first piece of advice is, you know, to just, as much as possible. I know parents are super busy. This is a real opportunity to enter into some of that, right? You're seeing in the home now the remarkable pedagogy, the remarkable curriculum that we have, you're going to see it more intimately than you ever have as a parent. And so to enter into that and to stand, as many of us do, in great awe and wonder of the things that we're delivering. But again, to be in contact with those teachers, we know that particularly at those youngest levels, parents are very used to being in contact with our teachers anyway, and our teachers are very responsive.
This is why the tutoring sessions are going to be really important. So we just want to emphasize this. If you're really struggling with a particular subject area or a method through which your student is supposed to approach a particular subject area, please reach out to your teacher. If you can, just get on for sometimes 15 minutes on a Zoom session can clear up something that's been sort of a bottleneck for that kid or for you. So really what we want to emphasize, our teachers are available for this help, and they want to help. Yeah. They want to help. That's so let's take a couple more questions here. So there's a quick one here that we can answer. Will the school year be extended? No, we're in the school year. We're doing the school year. We will have an update about what the last day of school will be. I think we'll be able to announce that this Wednesday in my weekly blast. So we're still working that out, but probably a standardized day that we'll all end on. But no, the school year will not be extended into June. So there's I guess nothing to worry about there in terms of if you have summer plans. Hopefully life is back to normal as we get into June and July, and we can have our July 4th celebrations and all that. We don't know yet, but no, the school year will not dip into June or July. But that's related to this other question. Yeah. What will the fall look like? Right? Yes. How much review? That's a great question. Executive Director Leanne Fawcett and I just had this conversation, and Mr. Crow, the Executive Director of Upper Schools, we're having this conversation as well. The goal, as Eric said, is to make sure that our students are not behind, right? We're trying to do everything we can now in this new environment to make sure that we can hit the ground running in the fall. But we've also given instructions to executive directors to talk with their headmasters, to talk with their teachers about what was covered, what wasn't covered, and what things were covered, but maybe will need a little bit of review. And there are already laying plans for working with teachers over the summer to plan for the fall, right? We obviously will do everything that we need to do in the fall to make sure that topics that were covered during this time are still mastered insofar as they need to. And so I think the fall will not look very different than a typical fall. The teacher may find that they're covering slightly different topics in the fall than maybe they were used to, but for the students, it won't look very different. It's not like we're going to have 4 to 5 weeks of solid review because of this time. I don't think that it will be necessary, and I think that we will be able to do everything we can now, and then just to spend a little bit more time in the fall making sure that we have everything that we need. So I don't think it's going to look tremendously different for families. There's a question about third and fourth quarter grades. I know that you already really covered that, but for those that just jumped on, will you quickly say it one more time? Yeah, so I think announcements will be coming out this week about what third and fourth quarter, well, third quarter grades should be out, right? Third quarter grades are out. Yeah, fourth quarter grades, there'll be an announcement this week about what those look like. I would say just two things. Our primary lens is to make sure that no student is harmed by the extraordinary circumstances that we're in. And then I think this is often a question that has more stress behind it when we think about high school, right? Because we're at that point we're talking about transcripts, and we are absolutely making sure that we know the impact that it will have on college admissions and on NCAA eligibility. And we've already heard from a number of colleges. I mean, this is sort of like popcorn now across the country, where they're saying that they actually won't hold these fourth quarter grades and whatever this semester calculation ends up being against a kid as they try to get into college. So I think that's an important, especially for our rising seniors and sophomores and all that. As that communication goes out this week, I think families will realize it's something of a do no harm policy, right? We want to make sure that no kid, particularly at the high school level, no kid's transcript is harmed by these extraordinary circumstances. Yeah. Well, all right, so let's knock these off really quickly. Graduation. That's, this is one of the reasons why we're really hoping that we would peak earlier than it looks like we're peaking here in Arizona, and that we might be able to salvage some of May and salvage prom and salvage graduation, things like that. Doesn't look like that's going to happen per the orders from state leadership, and so really where I know that our schools are thinking really outside of the box, trying to think about how we can make sure that the kids have at least some experience of graduating, of congratulating one another, and having some sort of act of closure. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, look, we made the point that our teachers really want to be teachers. My heart goes out to our students. Our students want to be students, and when we think of the students, I first and foremost think of the seniors right now, who I think, are missing each other. They're missing their teachers, and they're missing all of those exciting things that go on with the senior year, and we just want to honor that. We appreciate the seniors sticking with us through all of this. We will figure out the graduation thing. We need more details from the state on schedules, and the stay-at-home orders and things like this before we can do that, but we will figure something out. Related to that is a question about senior thesis. We know that's an important thing for our seniors as well.
Huge.
And we're doing that. We're doing that through the Zoom platform. In fact, I'm advising a senior thesis, and my student's defense is this afternoon. So we will be jumping on Zoom to do that defense. Parents will still be there. The student will be there offering the defense. Those links are made not public, but semi-public to their friends so that they can join in on this as well. And so we're doing that. We're doing that the best that we can in these extraordinary circumstances.
Yeah. So what's two questions up here? Testing and finals, sort of the same thing. What are we looking at there in terms of will there be tests? I know, and one thing to state very clearly, there will be no state standardized tests.
Right.
And there was great rejoicing. But there will be none of that this year. But what about tests just for the content that they're learning? What's that going to look like?
Yeah, I mean, I like to think of this in a broad category of just assessments. Again, students will be doing work. Some of that work will look like a typical test. Some of that work will look like typical work from a classroom, and that work will come in and we'll evaluate that work, right? And give feedback to the student to help them promote their learning and move forward. So sure, there will be things that look like quizzes and look like tests, just like there would be in a normal class setting, but we will continue to collect that and to give feedback on that and to return those to students.
My understanding is the AP exam, the College Board has just allowed for the AP exam to be taken at home.
That's right.
So how that's going to work will be interesting to see.
Yeah.
But at-home testing is certainly comes with its complications.
Yeah.
There's a question here about summer camp. We don't know yet. The hope is that as we roll into June, that will be somewhat back to normal, and that kids will be able to return to campus, and that you will be able to have those summer opportunities that so many of our families like to take part in. So you'll get more information about that as we roll in, probably into later April and early May. So be looking for more communication about that ongoing. There's a question here, Shannon. Do students need to wear uniforms on Zoom? Probably in your family. You make them do this, right? In our family, we do not make them put their uniforms on. I think there's a resounding answer to this, which is no, they don't. There's no requirement by the school to put a uniform on. But it's not a terrible idea when you're dealing with a quarantine situation to hop in the shower, to go through a daily routine, and to get dressed up a little bit, right? To not leave the PJs on. And I think for some of us moms and dads that might be just dealing with the stir craziness and other things, the more that you can do to set the stage both in the home, just in terms of how things are organized, but then also what we expect of our kids, the chores and actually changing one's outfit can have a profound impact on one's psyche.
Yeah.
And so it's actually not a bad idea. Maybe you don't need to make them put the uniform on if for whatever reason that doesn't fly. But it is not a bad idea in sort of the same vein to think about making sure that they dress up in some way, at least put on something a little better than PJs. Would you agree?
No, I'd agree. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Let's. How will you standardize the curriculum to give fair grades?
Yeah. So our curriculum is remarkably consistent.
Yes.
I mean, obviously we hire teachers who want to be teachers and have a certain amount of personalization in the assignment. assignments that they're given. We would never want to standardize to the point where every student has the same assignment coming out across the network. We want teachers to be able to do the genius work that they do. But the curriculum itself is remarkably standardized across the network. And because of that, I think that lays the groundwork for allowing us to give fair grades. Obviously, in this extraordinary time, we too are concerned about that. Right. We want to make sure that the teachers themselves, they find themselves in a new grading situation, right? And so we're working with headmasters to work with them to make sure that those grades are aligned to expectations in a way that fits our sort of do no harm philosophy here in this time. And so we have confidence that those grades will be both fair and consistent across the network.
Samantha asked, will there be a schedule of live instruction? And then will we use Swivel? So yes, we will use Swivel, but those are for recorded sessions, right?
That's right.
Not live sessions. But talk a little bit about these schedules.
Yeah.
And synchronous learning. I know there's some concerns about synchronous learning. Again, the idea that live session where everybody should be on at the same time. So maybe you could hit both of those.
Sure.
I know we've already touched on a little bit.
Yeah, so for people joining late, I do think it's an important question. When we talk about synchronous and asynchronous learning, our synchronous learning or that live interactive learning, the platform we're using for that is Zoom. We know there's a lot of concerns out there, a lot of news articles about Zoom. We are more than comfortable that we've taken every precaution necessary to make sure that they're safe, including allowing students or forcing students to join the waiting room before they join a Zoom session, which allows the teacher then to only admit students into the classroom. It completely avoids all of the stories we've heard about Zoom bombing. Our asynchronous platform is Swivel. These are asynchronous, meaning recorded videos that a parent can watch throughout the day. So there doesn't need to be a schedule of Swivel videos because much like the work that's done, the student can do that throughout the day. We chose Swivel also for security reasons. We didn't want to use YouTube for posting because we were very concerned about the YouTube suggestions that might come up. Yeah. It was just far too public of a thing, so we're using the Swivel platform for that. The question, though, was about schedule. The schedule is mostly about the live sessions. And yes, but that will be academy-driven, right? The teachers have instructions on how to set those up, and those schedules will be communicated, likely through the Google platform.
Again,
right?
Let's go back to, because I know that we're getting comments from parents. We can get easily frustrated, right? When there's a lot of technicalities that can go right and wrong.
That's right.
You're trying to get online. Both the hardware that you have, the infrastructure, the internet infrastructure that you have, and then tech is quirky, right? What are we doing, Jake? And I know we addressed this earlier, but again, people have been jumping on. What are we doing just to make sure that when a mom or a dad feels utterly frustrated, right? Mm-hmm. And they're especially in this transition from the packets, which were pretty simple, right? You go to our website. You get a full packet, you can print it off or you can come pick it up, and now you go to the Google Classroom platform and it's all actually sort of broken up by grade and subject. I'm sure we have parents just going, I can't figure this out, it's really tough. Say again what we're doing to make sure that we can support those families, get them comfortable with the platform. I know that there are some good videos about other apps you can use to scan work. It makes it really simple.
Sure.
But how to let's say for a mom who's really just totally frustrated at this point, maybe even a little upset at us for moving to Google Classroom.
Yeah.
What are we doing to make it easier on them, and how can they get help?
Yeah, so we think about this both in terms of being proactive and reactive, right? So we have a tremendous amount of resources that are available, and again, I would just direct our families to greatheartsamerica.org/AZ resources, and on there you'll find a Google Classroom family walkthrough. That I think is very good. And it not only is a document that leads you through it, but it has links to videos on how to use Google, how to do the scanning with your cell phone. There's no one way to do this, by the way. We gave, I think, 2 to 3 different ways to accomplish this, depending on what apps and what cell phones and what technology you have in the classroom. But we've already had families writing in saying, hey, I thought it was really easy if I did this app that we have and it's free. That's great, right? Uploading to Google Classroom turns out to be pretty simple. The difficult thing is how do you just scan the work, get it, go find that file, and then get that uploaded. Right. So the proactive work work that's been done by Geraldine Olson and her crew is just to provide a plethora of resources to families that are available on that website. But you'll also find there are reactive solutions, which is help desk links that you can use both for logging into Google, but also if you have some technology issues that are there, that we can support that. And then again, your first line of defense in many ways is just to contact your building. And the buildings know the resources that are there. The teachers, if they don't know it directly, they can contact their headmaster. The headmasters know about all of us that are on various teams, from curriculum teams to tech teams, hardware, software, and all of that. And we can help with all of that.
We're here to help.
We're here to help, and we have very much, the thing that we have done is very much our own folks a sense of patience. We know that families are, again, like you said, Eric, tech is quirky. Yeah. So to make sure that we're patient with families. But yeah, even though we can lay it all out, even though we can provide all the reactive support for it, we know your network's going to go out. Right? I was doing just great, and so all three of my kids jumped on a computer at once. And then I realized my bandwidth is not as high as I thought it was in my house. And so just working with families to go through those individual issues that are inevitably going to come because of tech.
Yeah. We got a bunch of questions here. We got about 15 minutes left, so let's go through these. Will remote learning be available in the fall if school is back in session? I would say no. No, if school's back in session, we want you back at school. And so no, the idea there is that that this is something that we're offering during these extreme times.
Let me address this question about Swivel here. Please share more about Swivel. Yeah, I should have. Parents probably are not familiar with that term. There's a lot of video software out there, right? You can take a video and post it to YouTube. Parents are probably familiar with something like Vimeo. We looked at all those platforms and did not use them, mostly because of their public nature. Right. They suggest videos for kids after they're done with it. We can't lock it down. Swivel is a video platform that we're having our teachers use. They're still using their cell phones to shoot the video, but they're going to post that to a website called Swivel. And we like that because it's a Great Hearts owned account. It's completely locked down, so we feel like it's very safe.
We've been using Swivel.
We've been using it for a while.
For many years.
That's right.
Are packets still available, or is it Zoom and YouTube only? Packets are available. Again, we addressed this earlier, but if you want to get a packet from your school, just reach out to them and they will make it available.
I'm comfortable with tech, but not with scanning. Yeah. I addressed that a little bit. There are a variety of ways. I mean, look, folks, if you don't want to do the scanning, you can just take pictures, and you can upload those. The upload into Google will take any file. So, however you can get that file is fine. There are some things where the students are doing their work in Word. In that case, you wouldn't scan at all. You can just upload the Word document directly. So the scanning is really just about how do you take work and come up with the file on your desktop or on your phone that you can then upload to Google.
Give the website again for the AZ Resources page.
So the website is greatheartsamerica.org/AZ Resources, and on there you will find the Google Classroom Family Walkthrough document that also has links to training videos on how to do the scanning in a variety of ways.
Question again, I think we addressed this earlier, but let's address it again. HL, Humane Letters, how will that work?
So first and foremost, students are going to read the great works. Let's remember the power of Humane Letters is twofold. It's reading the best that's been said, the best that's been written, and then it's dialoguing with people about it. So first and foremost, do the reading. Take this time to sit with those works in a way that you may not have had time to do during the year, right? Spend a little bit of more time with it. Enjoy that reading. Struggle with that reading. But then on top of that, we will have Zoom solutions for, for that really precious thing that we call seminar.
Summer EF tours, are they canceled? I imagine they are. I actually don't know the definitive answer to that. So why don't we make a note of that, Shannon, and we'll actually put that in one of the Wednesday updates. We'll reach out to EF.
How will participation be graded?
Yes.
Yeah. Look, this is different now, right? We're not in a 45, 50 minute a classroom every day where students have opportunities to interact. So, obviously we still prize participation. Part of that is just the ability to make sure you're getting the work done. Obviously, if there are things like synchronous learning, Zoom sessions, we can start to grade participation based on a student's ability to participate in that conversation. But we also should state for families that do want to opt out of this, your participation grade won't be harmed, by that.
That's right. That's right. This question about how will review happen in the fall, and then the statement, it impacts my level of engagement now. Is it fair to say, Jake, that review will happen as it always happens, which is we will take the general subject matter that we know maybe wasn't touched on at the level that we would have normally done it in regular session, and we'll make sure that we're following up. We're doing our review work all the time, just in the sort of cyclical way that we approach content. But I think it'd be important to emphasize here that we want people to take this remote learning as seriously as they can, as they ought to, and with the idea that there's so much that we will discover. I think we're already discovering this in the Twist household, that can be taught and learned at home. It's not ideal. I would say we have a nature. And we would rather be physically together, and so much of what we do requires that. But at the same time, what we do not want people to do is say, oh, the school is going to review this in the first and second quarter of the next school year, and so really I'm just going to take the next 2 months off. We don't want that.
And we have
not that parents are suggesting that, but maybe a few students might.
Yeah, we have great confidence in our students. One of the things, when we say that we're an education that is an education of the whole person, we talk a lot about virtue. We have them posted in our Archway schools. We continue to work on those throughout the prep schools. Part of those virtues are the intellectual virtues, right? The ability to establish those habits of learning. And of course, nobody's perfect, but we do have great confidence that our students are going to take the work as seriously. With regards to review, I should also say that, look, our philosophy of review is that it should be woven into the new content. We want to make sure that we cover all the content so that students are not behind, but in the event that they still need some of that strengthened, our teachers are very good at weaving that in to the new content. We always want students to be alive in the newness of the stuff that they're learning.
Right.
So that's the nature of classical pedagogy, is to continue to spiral through things. So you're not saying we're going to take 3 weeks of review so that those students who maybe really worked very hard and mastered all of it are sitting there for 3 weeks saying, what are we doing? The philosophy we have of review is that it's always necessary. Always necessary, but it's always done in the context of the new to keep the material alive.
Foreign language, will that be taught?
Yes. Yes. The subjects, all of the subjects should be covered.
And how will it be addressed?
So it's being addressed, I would say foreign language particularly, foreign language has the same challenges that something like Humane Letters does, where there's a real prized interaction. And so you will see video instructions, you will see Zoom opportunities, but obviously the spoken part of foreign language, the translation part and the reading, right, can be done much easier in this environment. Right. The spoken part of it will be something of a challenge, but we remain confident that we can do that as good as we can.
This question about Google in addition to Jupyter, I think it's important to note, in Arizona we have 2 prep schools,
right.
Trivium Prep and Arate Prep, who are not using Google Classroom. Everybody else is, but they were using Jupyter for a long time and felt comfortable, and their parents felt comfortable with it. So they're actually the 2 outliers.
We also should just note for anyone on this broadcast right now from Maryvale that Maryvale is rolling out their Google logins early this week. So they also would be in that group that did not get logins over the weekend. They're working through some technology challenges that they have, and those will be rolling out later this week.
My student struggles with calculus. That is not a unique student.
That is not a unique student.
So really 2 questions here. So how will his grade be impacted? So I think there's really actually a question. I think there are 2 questions, but could you emphasize just tutoring? So there is ongoing support that student can get, but then why don't we use this for those that have just joined to talk about grades one more time?
Yeah, so my student struggles with calculus. That could be a question that could have been asked 5 months ago before this ever happened. Lots of students struggle with calculus. That's the good of calculus. Yeah. We want them to struggle with that just like they struggle with the Nicomachean Ethics. It's also beautiful material. It's near and dear to my heart. I was a calculus teacher for many years. The supports are there, right? Students are going to struggle. They're going to struggle whether they're in a remote learning environment or a non-remote learning environment. Yeah. And I would make sure that they're always in contact with their teacher, just like they would be during the year. Setting up some of those tutoring hours, utilizing some of the extra resources that those teachers are putting out. But again, the grading, people are kind of in and out of the broadcast, so I'll never tire of saying it throughout this broadcast that we are working with teachers to make sure that they have grace and patience, to make sure that no student's grade is adversely affected by the extraordinary circumstances that we find ourselves in.
As long as students are
as long as they're showing that they're doing the work.
Trying,
that's right.
They will be held harmless.
That's exactly right.
In that.
There's a couple questions coming in that are similar. Okay. Can we print the PDFs, scan them, turn them back in? How do we turn it? Can we turn in hard copies instead of scanning? Look, we want to work with you as families to make sure that a student can. I mean, the most important thing is, can the student do the work, right, and can the student turn the work in? And so, we have come up with. No technology is easy, but we've come up with ways of doing this that we think are as simple as possible while still maintaining the security and safety of those platforms. Yes, you can print the PDFs. We would encourage you to make sure that you are printing only the things, particularly if you're doing this at home, that need to actually be filled out and turned back in. But yes, you can print them, you can fill them out, you can scan them and upload them to Google. If you don't have the ability to print and scan, you can pick up packets, and yes, you can turn in hard copies of packets. Just make sure that you're contacting your schools so they know how to work with you in order to do that. The governor's lockdown orders right now do not prevent a parent from coming out and picking up a packet and coming back out and turning in a packet.
That's right. Google Classroom going to remain up during the summer for kids that want to continue to review, or what's your thinking there?
So I don't think the Google Classroom the particular classrooms would remain up over the summer. It is a short-term solution. Obviously, if there are extenuating circumstances where students need to continue working on some work, then we would make sure that they have the ability to do that.
That's good. I think another question here. We're almost done. Can students improve their GPA in the fourth quarter? Yes.
Yeah, great question. So again, the full communication of that will come out later this week. But I would say again, because people are coming in and out, the way that we do fourth quarter is very much going to be a do no harm policy. We don't want students' grades to be adversely affected. But I think this question was probably a response to that. Is there ability there to improve it? And the answer is emphatically yes. We want to make sure that students who are working hard have the ability to improve upon. When I hear improve, I presume that means improve upon a third quarter grade.
Right.
And yes, that ability will be there.
So we're really coming to the end here. I know we've got meetings at the top of the hour. I'm sure there's plenty to do at home. And so I just, Mr. Tani, I want to thank you for spending this time with us.
Sure.
I think we'll probably do this again in future weeks, maybe even next week, maybe as early as next week. But I just want to remind everybody, we've got a survey coming out in my weekly Wednesday blast. Really hope that you'll give us feedback on that, what's working, what's not working, so that we can triage any issues early for you as in this transition to Google Classroom. Jake said it multiple times, and it can't be emphasized enough. We want to do everything that we can to serve you, to make it easy on your family. We are here to support you in the work that's going on at home that we know isn't always easy, but it's essential. It's essential right now, and so please be honest with us about what's working and what's not working. Be especially honest about what's not working,
right.
And know that you should be getting a quick turnaround in that support from us and our team. We want to make this as smooth as possible for you. So we thank you again, like Jake was saying, for your grace and your patience during this time. Any final words?
No, I'd close the way I opened. I consider myself so lucky to be part of this organization. I have seen the best of humanity come out during these challenging times, and I would say that my thanks goes out to our teachers, to our headmasters, to the support staff, the home office staff, who are really working around the clock to try to continue to do what it is that we do. And I would also thank all the parents who are out there. It has become clearer and clearer during this time the reality that we are in partnership with you. The educational endeavor is a partnership between us and you as primary educators of your students. So we thank you. It's a very humbling experience that you entrust your children to us, and we want you to know that we take that trust very, very seriously.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you to all of you. Hang in there. Stay safe. Hope everyone's healthy, and we can't wait to see everybody back in the fall. So see you again later. Jake, thank you.
Thanks.
All right.